hello again, and call this part 2 to the Sedona, Arizona challenge. In the last episode, we took up the question or the posting from Ben on the ORBX forums in a thread that talked about the most difficult airplanes to fly and the difficulties he was having landing at Sedona in the dash. And I posted a video that showed a somewhat botched landing, but I guess good enough for government work, that showed you could indeed do it and stop somewhere long before the end of the runway, to which a gentleman named Bernd Stolla, and forgive me if I'm mangling his name, posted also to the same forum. Now, Bernd, if you don't know, goes a long way back in the flight sim community. He is one of the premier, and I do mean premier, designers of flight models, of modeling the way real airplanes fly in Flight Simulator and, by extension, Prepared. I think he had something to do with the Majestic Q400, but I'm not sure. But in any case, he writes, first of all, if he did, thank you, Bernd. And he is a pilot in his own right. In the real world, he writes interesting discussion about drag lift, barn door effect, prop wash, etc., etc. Don't have Majestic Q400, but I've flown the Dash 7, Dash 8, 300, 400 in real life, a few thousand hours. You could land all three of them at idle power without any difficulty with the standard flap setting. Love to land the 300 at 900 RPM, almost jet-like, yada, yada, yada. His point being, as we go inside, that there's really no enormous difficulty to this airplane. Not only is it nice to be able to land it with a lot of power so you can control the rate of descent very precisely, but there really is no problem either landing it almost dead stick if you want. And I mean, in principle, I agree. What any airplane, whether it's a Mooney, a Cessna, a Piper Comanche, a de Havilland Beaver, a Dash, or I mean an X-15, any of it is just aerodynamics and physics, and if you don't have a whole lot of power to rely on, then basically you're just trading off potential versus kinetic energy. You're using the force of gravity and trading that off against your forward momentum and the force of lift over the wings, and you're making do with that. So what we're going to do this time, he says as he bites his tongue, one of these days I have to learn how to use the language without mangling my face, is we're going to do a similar takeoff approach and landing as we did for the last video, only this time instead of using power, we're basically not going to use much power once we turn final. We're going to pull our throttles back or our power levers back to idle, and then we are basically just going to swap altitude for speed, throw in a little drag, and before you know it, we should kiss the ground at almost the same negligible rate of descent as you would when you flare for landing with power. You just will have one fewer tool in your toolbox to play with. This is really not a power trip. This is really not a party trick. It is just, I mean, the essence of flying. My brother is a glider pilot, as he never ceases to remind me, and for him, this is how he does it all the time. There's just no question about it. He's got altitude, he's got distance, he's got aerodynamics, and he's got the force pulling his mass and the mass of his glider to the earth. So we're going to do the same thing with this. Really quickly, we're going to check our trims. They're fine. Our flaps are fine. Our bleeds are fine. Our lights are on. We're going to do a standard takeoff. We've got about 30%, 35% fuel in here. We are going to climb to the left. We're going to fly the published instrument GPS approach, only instead of using power and conducting ourselves down a standard 3 degree glide path, we are instead probably going to have to descend a little bit steeper because of the lack of power, and then we will flare at the last minute, and we will gracefully kiss our main gear back onto terra firma here at Kilo Sierra Echo Zulu. Anyway, without much further ado, or without too much more Bravo Sierra, here we go. That squeak you hear is the parking brakes coming off. We're going to first look for 80, and then we're going to look for V1 and rotate, and then we're going to go. And our takeoff power is set. We're a little sluggish because of the altitude. Just maintain center line right here. Haltingly, I might add. There's 80. And here comes V1 and rotate. There we go. And up we go. We won't overcook it here because we were very sluggish because of the altitude. You're going to hear a warning in a second. Maybe.
Don't sink.
There you go. Am I clairvoyant or what?
Don't sink.
I'm not going to sink. I'm going to follow the flight director around. Again, we're set to climb to our initial altitude for the descent, which is 8,000, which is about 3,000 above the field. Around we come. We'll start to bring in our flaps. We will nose down ever so slightly. There we go. Pull the props back to 900 and make our way around this turn. This is all going to happen very, very quickly. Over some gnarly terrain, as you can see. Okay, up come our flaps. Bring our props back to cruise, which is how we're going to land, by the way. We're not going to use the drag of the props to help us out here. Just going to engage the autopilot to climb us the last few hundred feet of the way. And as you can see, that's our initial approach fix. There's our final approach fix. And very, very quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off auto feather, and I'm going to bring our power back momentarily. Keep us from going above 200 or thereabouts. Good. Okay, so we're leveled. I'm going to request a reduced noise profile landing, which brings our levers forward but keeps our props at 850. Then I'm going to arm our approach. I'm mainly going to use this for lateral. Boy, it would be wonderful if I spoke English. Lateral guidance. Okay, there you go. There's our approach. In the meantime, you can see the field is right behind us, about over there. We're basically on a downwind leg right here. Spin our heading bug around just in case we get lost. There we go. I'm also going to set an altitude. Not that we're going there yet. That shouldn't move. Let's do this. Let's set a V speed of 0. There we go. Now it's not going to move. And we'll set this to field elevation, or plus 200. Hit Alt Select. That's just to give us some rough vertical guidance. And we will also set our VREF, which will be 118. And V climb we can keep there, it doesn't really matter. decision height also, strictly speaking, doesn't matter. We're basically making this crap up as we go along. So there isn't exactly a procedure to stick to, but set it to 300 above field elevation. It's not going to be much use either because we're going to be going over a huge valley before we hit the bluff, but so it's going to have erroneous readings. Given that, let's just turn that down to 0. It doesn't really matter. Don't want it bothering us. Bring our speed down just a little bit. Let that bleed off. When we turn to final, we are going to have how much? 5 miles, 9.8 miles. Okay, we're going to have 10 miles essentially to run. And actually, because we're going to make that turn, we're going to cut it a little short. We'll probably have about 8 miles to run. So with 8 miles to run, we're going to come down 3,000 feet. So we actually start descending pretty quickly, pretty soon after we turn final. So let me bleed off a little more speed. Now bear in mind, when we come off the power, ultimately speed is going to mean our lives. So we have to trade speed for altitude. So I'm basically playing a little bit of a guessing game here with that rate of descent because I'm not intimately familiar with exactly our best rate of powered off descent. So we're going to hope we get a good look at the Pappies, and then we're going to play it by, I was going to say by ear, but we're going to have to play it by eye. Alright, so the speed's coming off a little bit, and remember, that's going to build up again when we start going downhill, so I think we will be okay. As soon as we get onto final here, okay, we're 4 miles from Lyrit, and then we've got another 4 miles to go, so we've got 8 miles, so as soon as we get established here, I'm going to take out the autopilot, and we're just going to go down. Trying to spy our Pappies right now, and sadly I don't see it. This is not really the sort of thing you want to do in instrument conditions, but as they say in France, there you are. Out comes the autopilot. Okay, I see our Pappies right over there to our 1 o'clock. I'm going to ignore the vertical needle, and I'm going to use the vertical. I'm going to ignore the horizontal needle. I'm going to use the vertical needle for lateral guidance only. And I'm going to roll back the throttles to idle. Put in my flaps at kind of the last minute. Not too much the last minute because we actually have quite a ways to go down, so a little bit of drag is not going to hurt us at this point. I'm almost at idle throttle or power burnt, but I'm not quite there yet. All I can see is the blob of the Pappies. I can't actually see the runway environment there. I can get a hint of the runway. I'm only going to get one shot at this, otherwise we are going to hit the upside of that mountain, as it were.
2,500.
Now it says I'm 2,500 feet above the ground right now, which means actually I'm considerably less above the airport. And I'm at a reasonable speed, so if I have to force it downhill a little bit, I'm not going to be so fast. I'm going to float over the top of the runway. I'm just going to take out
terrain.
that.
Terrain.
The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off our terrain warnings, because who needs to hear that? Okay, I'm high enough now that I know I can put in my gear, and that'll be cool. I'm at,
Pull up.
shut up, I'm at flaps 10.
Terrain.
I'm trying to kill that warning. There we go. Alright, we're still at a reasonable speed. There come my next notch of flaps. Now we're on profile, but I'm going to dip below it, probably. And I got one more notch of flaps to go. There we go. Alright, so it's all us at this point. And I'm going to land a little bit long here.
500.
I'm going to slip it a little bit. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to pull up the nose.
100.
Pull up the nose, and we're going to float.
20. 10.
There we are. And down we go. And we are going to certainly make it with plenty of room to spare. Anyway, Bernd, my profoundest thanks if you're one of the people who's behind this amazing flight model. And certainly thanks for the message which spurred me to try this little experiment in energy management, which at the end of the day is what it's all about. So thanks to you. Thanks to everybody who's written in. Thanks to everyone who's watching, and I'll see you next time.